Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. I hope you are as excited as I am because holy guacamole, if I didn't have so much to do today, we'd be taking a shot of that Tesla tequila. That's gonna happen later on tonight after the Robotaxi event. The Robotaxi event will be live at 10 p.m. So 2 hours after this video is posted. This is a late event. We're going to be covering the overnight trading of Tesla, what's happening live with Tesla stock following the conclusion of this event. Now, if you guys would like me to live stream this event, that is a possibility. Just let me know down below in the comment section if you would like to watch that live with us. Nonetheless, here in this video, I will discuss some of the potential outcomes via the Robotaxi event and how this can affect Tesla stock. Now, there's a lot of rumors. There's a rumor that McDonald's is going to be showcased, probably getting food from McDonald's if I were to imagine. There's also rumors of a potential partnership between Tesla and DoorDash that could be coming. I mean, it's hard to say. These are rumors, so I'm sure there's some truth to them in some capacity or another. And I think Wall Street would like that, right? Tesla partnering with other players that are already kind of adjacently in the robotaxi field anyways, or in the mobility sector, I think would be seen as a positive. Now, one thing that I'm growing a little bit more excited about, really in the last couple of hours, I seen a whole Mars catalog post where basically he was saying that Tesla should just launch the network for robotaxis now, meaning that we won't actually have robotaxis now, but it could operate something like an Uber that would, allow Tesla owners to get on there and operate their network. Their car on that network, and that would instantly put Tesla in a place of competing with Uber. Now, yes, okay, there's a couple different problems that I have with this whole event. The problem that I have is we're not really expecting robotaxis for at least a decent amount of time into the future, at least many months, okay, 6 to 12 months. I think this makes a lot of sense to me for Tesla to launch this app, if you will, soon, rather than wait. Because, I mean, why do this event in the first place if it's going to take 6 to 12 months for anything to happen? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me to do this event and then just sit around and wait for, the robotaxis to come. I think it would make sense to have Tesla kind of fine-tune their app to get Teslas doing, rides as soon as possible. And I think that is something that Tesla can accomplish relatively easy. Now, I think Wall Street would be very excited with that because, again, you're instantly then competing with Uber. You literally overnight just created a totally new line of the Tesla business. If there wasn't already enough that Tesla does, that would be another thing that could be a substantial driver of, revenue into the future. So I think that is a pretty exciting possibility. Now, if that does not happen, the next thing that matters is the Model 2. Believe it or not, Wall Street is only going to care so much about hopes and dreams of the robotaxi, okay? Hopes and dreams, concepts are only concepts. And you're not going to get much value appreciation for Tesla stock if Tesla comes out and says, yep, this is the product, this is what it's going to look like, this is our plan, but it's not going to launch for 6 or 12 months or 24 months. I don't think Wall Street's going to like that. I mean, yes, if we do get guidance for 2025 for robotaxis, Wall Street will like that. But a lot of people on Wall Street are saying this is really a 2026 or 2027 endeavor from Tesla, which I don't think that would give Tesla stock any brownie points now. Now, there's one big problem that we could have with the Robotaxi event in terms of Tesla stock, and it's really this. We're expecting the Robotaxi is going to be pretty much the Model 2. We're expecting a similar kind of design. We're expecting many things to be similar to this, to the extent that both of these vehicles could work on the same production lines. Okay. Now, if we get a 2-seater robo-taxi, then Wall Street's going to say the Model 2 is likely going to be 2 seats as well. That's a problem. The whole reason the Model 2 is going to be, good news for Tesla, why Wall Street's so looking forward to that, is because it boosts Tesla's total addressable market. The amount of people that, one, can now afford a cheaper Tesla goes up, and the amount of people that will buy a Tesla goes up. That is increasing the total addressable market. A Model X or Model S or Cybertruck even, they're not in most people's budgets. Even the Model Y or the Model 3 may not be in a lot of people's budgets, but a $20,000, $25,000 car could be in a lot more people's budget range. Okay, so there's that. But if we get a 2-door robo-taxi, then you kind of cannibalize the total addressable market of the Model 2. Of course, would some single people, would some younger people potentially get a Model 2? Yeah. But Wall Street wouldn't assign great numbers for it if it's a 2-seater. Because think about yourself. Could you get a Model 2? Would that make sense to you? If you have kids, it won't. I have kids. I couldn't get a Model 2. So even if I wasn't in the affordability range of all Tesla's other products and I was looking forward to this Model 2, I still would be not able to buy it. So that could be the problem. Now, Tesla is probably going to do different variations. As Gene Munster said yesterday on CNBC, Tesla's probably going to do some combination of, 2-seaters, 5-seaters, or a 6 to 10-seater for the robo-taxi. But then that brings up another problem. Does Tesla need to make a whole new factory to add the room or the capability to actually make those vehicles, mass market, right? There's only so much you can do with the space that Tesla currently has. Yes, they have a lot of space in Giga Texas, but it's gonna take a lot more time to, get 3 different variations of the robotaxi going, plus the Model 2. Or even, the robotaxi being 2 variants, let's say a 5-seater and a 2-seater, and then you get a Model 2 that runs off the 5-seat kind of platform. That's still a lot more production or manufacturing capability that Tesla would have to roll out. Now, Tesla hopefully is going to clarify these things for us so we don't have too many questions. But right now, I have a lot of questions in regards to the Model 2. And I don't think this is a product unveil for the Model 2 by any stretch. And that kind of has me nervous as well. If Elon and Tesla don't really want to comment on the Model 2, then the markets will just infer the robotaxi platform is going to be what the Model 2 is. And if it's only a 2-seater, we're going to have big problems. Now, that's the biggest gripe I have heading into this event. That's the biggest thing where I can see just easily, like, hey, that would be a negative catalyst for Tesla. Now, take a listen to what Wedbush analyst Dan Ives, one of the top ranked analysts in the world, just said about the Tesla robotaxi. He says the Tesla robotaxi will be a game changer.
What are we going to get? Are we going to get info on cost per mile overall, scaling the cybercab? Are we going to get info on whether they have a ride-sharing app or insurance costs? I don't know. I want some details here. Are you going to get them?
Yeah, I think it's actually going to be heavy on details. I think importantly, this is really showing autonomous, in terms of true autonomous, as we go to level 4, level 5. This is really going to be a game changer for Tesla. And I think they're going to show on Cybercab and the rollout, I think by the end of next year, this is something within certain cities that will be, ultimately a reality. And I think when you actually start to go through per mile and you look at miles driven, I think from a fleet perspective, even relative to what we see with Waymo and everyone else, I think it's a new chapter for Tesla. You do not walk away, shrug the shoulders. I think this is a game changer.
You do. All right. So do you think you're going to walk away with enough information to put a model together, a discounted cash flow model or something based on your own assumptions in terms of where this thing goes, that you can start to come to a number in terms of per share as to what it's going to mean for the company?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's really, okay, what's the timetable? Now, clearly, obviously, some of the promises in the past have not worked out here. I think we're talking not just by the end of next year, but what's the ramp over the next few years, 3 to 4 years? What could that mean in terms of for the fleet? 6 million cars out there, potentially 8 or 10 over the next few years. What ultimately does that mean? This is pure margins. This is really building out a whole new business for Tesla. And I think we could be looking at something based on our math, 3-4 years out. This could be 20-30% overall profits.
20 to 30% overall profits for of the company's profits will be from their effort here. I mean, you say that it represents $1 trillion of value for Tesla over the coming years. How do you get to that number?
I mean, I just look at FSD, look at autonomous relative to cars on the road. This is not just for Tesla. It's our view that they're ultimately going to OEM this technology. And when you look at even some of the numbers out there, I mean, we could be talking about 10, 20 billion annually per year that they're starting to ultimately deliver when this ultimately gets to scale. And I don't view this necessarily as a massive threat to Uber, but just look what Uber did in rideshare. So I think when we look at the broader market here and ultimately the software driven and the margins, I view this will be a day we look back at 3-4 years from now that actually start to change the next phase of the Tesla story.
You don't worry, Dan, about the regulatory approval needed for autonomous vehicles on a state-by-state basis, which is where they're given. I guess 29 states and Washington, D.C. currently have autonomous vehicle operation mandates. And I guess there are certain friendlier states like Texas. But isn't that a factor here?
Oh, clear. Look, I think David's question on the cost per mile, that's something I'd expect to hear about. And that's important in terms of what we're looking at. Regulatory is the biggest hurdle. And I think that's something state by state on the federal side, they're going to have work cut out for them. But that is something, I think it starts tonight, but over the coming 12, 18, 24 months, I think regulatory ultimately is something that they're going to be able to sort of navigate through. And I think that's the important thing tonight. Not just the technology, showing how we get there, what the roadmap is.
And I mean, I generally agree with that statement. Now, take a listen to this clip on CNBC from Gene Munster, and then I'll discuss what can happen to Tesla stock following this event.
Sold investors on this idea that Tesla vehicles will one day be self-driving. Now, tomorrow, those promises may finally be fulfilled when the company unveils its robo-taxi at its We Robot event in Los Angeles. Fast Money friend Gene Munster joins us now on set. Gene is actually on the way to the robo-taxi event, so you're passing through. Thanks for joining us, Gene. And you're fully expecting to get into a robo-taxi and get driven around by no one tomorrow.
Yeah, I'd put the odds at that at above 90% that we'll get a chance to do that. And it's going to be obviously in a contained environment. And so keep in mind, back in 2018 at their Autonomy Day, they took a Model 3 and put it on Highway 101 in San Francisco. And so the idea of them being able to move around and autonomously in a controlled environment is nothing new. I think what I'm focused in on is, what's the form factor like? Is this a 2-person? Is it a 4-person vehicle? And then the all-important question around timing of the vehicle, because for them to talk about something is very different than the substance of actually seeing these products in the market.
Because he's talked about it a lot. He's promised it a lot.
21 times, in fact.
21 times. And the average promise in terms of time frame is 2 years.
2 years.
From that moment that he talked about.
From that moment. Yep,
and that moment
correct.
still has not come. And so tomorrow, do you think it's going to be 2 years again, which would be, that means nothing to me.
I think that he's going to say something that's a little bit longer than under 2 years. I think he'll say that by the end of 25, that they're going to be rolling out some of these robo-taxis in some select cities. Now, that's an approach that Tesla historically hasn't taken. They've kind of had this idea of getting the cars in the market. But I think that they could take a similar approach to like Waymo. And also, I think another piece to the conversation around the timing. So again, late 2025, I think that they'll have some form of robo-taxi service. Another aspect to this is I think they may actually talk about a couple other vehicles, a more affordable Tesla And I'm an outlier on this next one, but I think a passenger van for autonomy, 6-10 people kind of a vehicle.
So, Gene, first of all, it's great to have you in the house.
Fun to be
it's been
here.
A long
Indeed.
time.
Yeah.
So, what is the business model of the robo-taxi? How much do you think it's worth? How's it going to work?
So if you think about the total profit of Tesla, I think that ultimately 20% of this could come from the ride-hailing network. There's a lot of factors that play into that. I think that's just in the U.S. if they can get around 50% share. So of course Uber dominates that today, but I think if you look at if they eventually have this as a service where they charge 20% less than a typical Uber ride because you get rid of the driver, and they take a 15% cut, I think it can add. It's basically pure margin. So I think that this can be a material lever is 20% addition. I don't think this is going to like triple Tesla's business, for example, but I think it's going to be a material piece to it.
Gene, how do you handicap the stock? It's probably 40% off its all-time high. It's probably rallied, I don't know, over 100% from the lows in the spring. So it's volatile stock. 260 has been resistance now, December, July, and then recently. Is it ever going to get to a level where it starts doing what it's supposed to do, lower left, upper right, like a lot of these other stocks have done?
So for this week, I actually expect the stock to probably be down after the event because I mentioned that the all-important timing question. I don't think investors are going to leave with a ton of substance or a ton of excitement around that. But I think if you look at the trajectory of where they're going, ultimately I think that growth rates can go from, call it 7% in the most recent September quarter. I think they can get back into the 20-25% growth rate. And if you put a multiple on this, I think this is a hardware software services similar to Apple. That trades at just over 8 times. You can build a case for the next couple of years for this to be a 40% stock to be 40% higher. So I think it will continue to make new highs as deliveries start to accelerate.
How do you factor in the 2 new vehicles that you are expecting and the impact on margins? Because that could be a real setback for investors in terms of how they're comparing margins to OEMs, because they've said that as being sort of a marker. We're not going to get there.
So the key word is affordability. That's a word that Elon used on the last call when he's talking about this next model. And it's a little bit ambiguous, but it has a big impact on margins. So if the affordable vehicle that they're talking about is actually taking a stripped down Model 3, which they're doing in Mexico, that probably is actually going to be okay with margins because they got a lot of the manufacturing infrastructure in place. If it's building a whole new factory for a entirely new, more affordable Model 2, then it probably continues to pressure margins. I think the margin anxiety for investors is, I think that's kind of basing right now. I think the focus is more shifting to delivery growth over the next few quarters.
So I did find it interesting that both Dan Ives and Gene Munster are expecting some kind of guidance for the Robotaxi network by the end of 2025. You know, I think that would be positive, but would that impress Wall Street? Would that be like more than we're expecting? It seems like we're already expecting that. I do think initially it would be seen as positive, but I think, again, back to the thing that I was saying earlier, you're probably going to get a start of non-robo-taxis on the Tesla app, on the ride-hailing app first. That would make sense to me. Even a partnership with Uber to, get people that maybe want a Tesla, right, that are on Uber that opt for a Tesla can get rerouted or something to the Tesla service, right? There's quite a bit of different outcomes that could happen here, but the more that I think we get a launch by the end of 2025 of robotaxis, the more that I think we probably get a launch of just, like a whole Mars catalog was saying, you just get a launch of non robotaxi Teslas first, like human, basically Uber rides, but on the Tesla app. That would make sense to me, and I think that would get Wall Street excited because that could start relatively soon and actually start to bring in some decent numbers for Tesla. Depending, obviously, how many people signed up or whatnot. There's going to be nuances there. But I think that would be an upside surprise for Tesla stock. I would think, again, as long as the Model 2 is not a 2-seater, as long as Elon clarifies that, I think that is going to mean some upside for Tesla stock. And I think there's going to be a couple other wild cards that we are given as well. Now, with that said, if all things go good, the robotaxi is whether it's 2-seater, 5-seater, if they have a van option, who knows? I don't think that really matters too much for Tesla stock, whether it's a 2-seater or not. As long as the Model 2 is clarified not to be a 2-seater, that would be great news. Better than expected news, I think, at this point would be the start of, again, non robotaxi rides on the Tesla app before robotaxis. So maybe starting Q1, Q2, people could start signing up their cars and start signing up to do basically taxi rides on the Tesla app. I think if you get a combination of all of these things, if the event goes off without a hitch, Tesla stock is certainly going to rally. I would at least expect 7 to 10% tomorrow. Again, it just depends how good things are. If this really truly did go off without a hitch, I would say 15% is definitely in the cards tomorrow. Wouldn't even surprise me if we got 20%, because I think a lot of Wall Street is still pretty conservative on Tesla. Now, if things are just good but not great, then you probably get a 5 to 7% move higher. That could put Tesla stock in the neighborhood of $256 per share or so. If things are bad or just underwhelming, let's say, you get a 5 to 6% down move. That puts Tesla stock sub $230 per share, around $225, $26 per share. If we get a bad event and the Tesla vehicle fails or something, which I think is highly unlikely, then you're probably going to fall at least 10 to 15%. 15% downside would put the stock at about $205 per share. 10% downside would put the stock at about $218 per share. I really don't think that's a big deal, and I think that would be a buying opportunity if we get that, and I will be buying Tesla stock if we do get any kind of downside move that's anywhere in that range. After all, we've already fallen from the recent highs that we hit to today about 9%. The lowest point of the day today, you would have been down 12.5%. You've already kind of fallen into this event, and that's why I'm leaning more bullish after this event. I think there's a greater chance Tesla stock goes up rather than down following this event coming tomorrow morning. We also have bank earnings as well that are going to come tomorrow morning, and that could definitely throw a little bit of a wrench in the market if those earnings are bad, especially. Now, if they're good, great. That's going to help out Tesla. But if those earnings are bad and they have negative things to say, the banks, I think, are going to be very important this earnings season. So with that said, let me know what you think about this information down below in the comments section. Let me know if you would like us to stream that event live down below in the comment section. If not, we'll just cover all of the events highlights in a video probably coming out. I believe the event's probably going to be at least an hour and a half long. So maybe by midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, 10, 11 p.m. Pacific time, potentially that video could be coming out. So be on the lookout for that. Nonetheless, you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.